preparing. Says it's now streaming live. This is where I go here. I hit refresh. Shows me my posts. Facebook tells me to switch to a business profile on Instagram. I don't know why that's relevant. Gotta hit refresh again. This is the part where you guys just have to watch. Maybe I'm doing something important, probably not. There we go, live. Okay, I wanna click on this so I can see all the good comments. I wanna click the mute button so I don't create sound infinity. Karen Baker's joined. Hello, Karen, we're live, super cool. Welcome everyone to Friday Live Coaching. It's kind of like pigs in space. In as much as that sounded a little bit like the way the announcer did on the Muppets Pigs in Space. That's the only way that this is like pigs in space, but I'm the host and have all the power, so I can just say stuff and it becomes reality. And that's the power that all of you have in your own lives. You could make up, that's what I use my power for, is to create very poor, loose analogies to shows from my childhood. You could use your power for other things. It's not my decision to tell you what to use your power for. Anyhow, enough about that and sharing how I'm wasting my life. Let's share a moment of tea together. Smell it like a good chemistry. That's how you smell stuff in chemistry. I do believe that of everything that we learned in chemistry, that if there's one thing everyone took away, it's that you smell things this way. This is chemistry. This is what I got from chemistry. I also know that iron is Fe. That's a cube of iron I have on my table. If anyone ever breaks in, I put this in a sock and I hit them with it. And in the meantime, I use that as a paperweight for my receipts down here. And check this out. We've also got, what is this one? Oh, it's copper. We've got some Cu there, copper. And I also remember lead is Pb, plomb in French. So those are the 1, 2, 3, 4 things that I know from chemistry. And you probably know at least one of them, which is the correct way to smell poison, I guess. Okay, I put a window over here with things to talk about that weren't this. So let's turn my eyes here. What does it say here? Contemporary djembe instruction. So first, hey, David, and hello again, Karen. I'm gonna copy this link. Djembe, I'm gonna write a comment, djembe rad dude, and then I'm gonna post this. So one of the things I've been pursuing an interest in, we'll say, is drumming. I bought myself a djembe. This is a heavy drum, a djembe drum. Look at that guy, he's big ass. And I've been practicing with that a little bit. And I also bought this fiberglass one that's a bit smaller and looks very, that looks very reggae, doesn't it? And I've just been looking at tutorials and kind of playing with the drum. My hair luge is, oh, it looks magnificent. Thanks, David. And look, it's doing this weird triple part thing. I don't know what's going on there. And so, first of all, that tutorial series that I just shared is amazing. And I don't know what it is about this guy. It turns out he's quite an accomplished teacher now, about 10 years after he posts these videos. But there's something very innocent and also very proficient about the way he delivers his tutorials. And he always starts them and goes, hello, he's South Korean. Hello, welcome to Hand Drumming 101. And then he does this very pleased, you can't quite see it. He talks, he puts his hands on the drum and then talks like, this is for your small group worship. It's not traditional African drumming. My attempt to do his accent is not meant to denigrate it. It's actually, I think his accent's delightful and he has a real great grasp of the English language. So anyhow, I've been playing with this drum, which has been driving Bay and possibly our tenant insane. She keeps coming over and saying, maybe at 10:30 in the morning when I'm completing with a client is not the best time for you to be drumming, which is hard for me to disagree with. So anyhow, I'm gonna play a little hip hop beat here, make an ass of myself, but that's one of the things I've been fiddling around with is like, there's sort of some basic strokes in djembe. There's the bass stroke, which is just your hand flat against this center of the drum. There's the tone stroke, which is right against the edge there. And then there's the slap, which is you hit with your hand right here and your fingers go whatcha. They kind of bounce off the drum. So based on those 3 strokes, here's a little bit of a hip hop beat that I've been working with. We'll see how this comes forward. You're not going to be able to see. Maybe can I get that down there? Maybe if I come back a little there, you can kind of see it. So here we go. Let's just see if we can get this. So been playing with that. That's live. If you're interested at all in playing with beats and hip hop or traditional African drumming or whatever, I really recommend you check out those videos, that tutorial set, because even if you don't have a drum, it's driving Bay insane. I'll be sitting in the bathroom practicing these hand rhythms, these motions. So you can drum on anything, it turns out. I've discovered this. You can drum on your wife's butt. That is not something they seem to appreciate, but it's available. That possibility is there. So that's one thing that I've been playing around with. There's a few other things I want to share before we bring on special celebrity guest Kacey Cardin, who came in at the last minute. More on that in a sec. Check this out. That is my book. This is Too Smart to Know Better. You can see it says not for resale, like those packets of peanuts you get in an airplane. Can't resell. It's my friggin' book, and I'm not allowed to resell it. That's all good. This is sort of the last check before this goes live on Amazon. So that's quite cool. Neat little look. That's probably me, and this is all the size of my brain. This is how I walk around through the world. And then, like, look, there's words in here that I wrote. Like, let's look at, what does it say right here? What's the title of this chapter? I want to strangle all the morons. That does sound like something Adam would write. So just want to share that with you. It's very cool. Excited to have that released into the world soon. And then comes, marketing and all of that sort of stuff. So you can tell I'm incredibly empowered around that. 2 other things I'll share, and then we're going to dive in. So first is tonight we're running an event here at my house, hosting a bunch of people for an event that likely will continue and grow, called Ontologically Speaking. And what the intention there is to bring people together that want to be in a conversation that's ontologically based. What that means is often we have conversations with each other about, like, hey, those trees are green, or hey, I'm upset about that thing, rather than a conversation like, I don't know. Well, I'm going to share about a distinction in a sec. We don't tend to have conversations like that. We don't tend to have conversations like, I notice that even though everything in my life seems really great, the experience I'm having is kind of crappy. And that's intriguing to me. And I want to move through that or address that. And so that's the intention tonight. We've got about 4 hours set aside, got people coming over, we've got snacks, and we're going to sit down, and I don't really know what's going to happen, which is terrifying. It's very, very edgy for me to have people over and have this loose idea of how to have this thing unfold, but I don't really know, like, is it going to work? Is it going to be really awkward having 10 people in my living room and sort of saying, like, all right, one person's going to speak for a bit, and then we're going to discuss this idea and bounce it around. Is there going to be, I don't know. I just have a lot of stuff that shows up for me when I create something like that, which is the gift of this thing. That's why I'm doing it, is to be with that, to simply invite people into the space, to have an intention. I've got like sort of a schedule that I've thought out, or a loose one, a rough intention. I'm partnering with my friend Michelle Aubry around that. So we've got some support. It's not just me, but do want to share that is an edgy practice for me. Trevor, thanks for asking. It is going to be available on Amazon soon, and you'll probably be sick of hearing me talk about it when that happens. I'm thinking probably at most a month at this point. We've got this now available. Well, it's not available, but it's like, now that the book exists in the world, it's just a matter of kind of flicking the switch on Amazon saying, great, that's going. Just a few things left that need to be kind of final edits so that I occur as perfect in everything I put into the world. Okay, last thing I'm going to talk about before we bring on Kacey and take my money. Trevor, by the way, for everyone, is the photographer I work with, an incredibly talented man. You're going to see, he and I just finished a really cool photo shoot together. I like getting photos done, and we did an awesome shot. We got a motorbike involved in it, which, if you know me, might be a little funny, but I think the beard can kind of carry the weight of the badassness of the motorbike beyond who I happen to be. And so anytime you see photos of mine, they're like, damn, look at these things. Trevor's your boy. If you live in Victoria or around here, get in touch with him. Amazing guy. Okay, so last distinction that, quiet Heather. Last distinction I want to bring into the space is something that has been live for me lately. It's been showing up in my friendships. And I was talking to my friend Michelle Aiken just this morning, as I do every Friday. And we kind of we were both coming into this idea of being a clearing for something rather than doing that something. And so I'll try to explain this. It's a little weird. First of all, if you want a deeper explanation, a deeper understanding of what I mean when I talk about a clearing, check out Get Lit, my podcast on iTunes. One of the earlier episodes, I explain like, what is a clearing? Why does it matter for a leader? How do you actually create a clearing? Really what a clearing is like creating yourself as the space in the world for something to show up. So I could create myself as we'll use this example. There's me going and asking people for feedback, like doing the thing, asking people for feedback. And then there's me creating the clearing in which people provide me feedback. Those two things might sound very similar, but they're actually quite different, especially for someone like me who operates from a lot of control. One of the ways that I've made life safe for me, which isn't what life is about, one of the ways I've made life safe for me is with a lot of control. And so there is a degree, it's always kind of edgy to ask someone for feedback. But if I go to them and say, hey, do you have feedback for me? I would like feedback. I'm the one controlling that when that feedback arrives, right? I'm kind of going to them and saying, now is the time, you can provide me feedback. I've decided that I am open. Whereas if I were to be the clearing, if I were to take that on as a practice, which I am, I might need to take a look at like, hey, are people giving me a lot of feedback? Is that something happening in my life right now? The answer is no. Although that's starting to shift now that I've been taking this on. And so from there, from no, I might ask myself like, well, who would I need to be? How would I need to show up in the world that would have people start to be willing to provide me feedback? And there's a lot I can see from that space. But first, let's just look at that distinction again. If I go and ask for feedback, none of this shows up. I don't have to think about any of this, like who am I being? How is it that I'm creating a world where no one provides me feedback? I just sort of fix it. I just go and give me feedback. Great, I'm doing a good job as a leader. I'm getting feedback. Awesome. Whereas if I'm committed to being a clearing in which people provide me feedback, I have to look. And some of the things I've been seeing are like, when people provide me feedback, how do I be about that? Well, the answer is I thank them and then I set it aside. I ignore them. I just like, great, thanks for your feedback. Fuck off is kind of the subtext of what happens. One of the things I've noticed is I can often, intentionally or not, it's funny how the color is going from orange to not. I can go from sort of presenting myself to the world like it's all handled. And when it looks over there like it's all handled, well, what are you going to provide feedback on? It's all handled. It looks really good. So I might have to be willing to show up in the world not having it all handled. So this is a distinction that's really live for me. And I'm really taking a look at like, how can I be the clearing for something rather than just doing the something? That might be a cool place for you to look if there's some area in your life where you're like, oh, I really want more of X. And then rather just going and forcefully creating X or subtly creating X, you might just ask yourself like, well, how am I being that X isn't showing up in my life? And what might I need to shift to actually create the clearing for X to start showing up in my life? David Foster, being approachable versus approaching. Yeah, sure. That's like kind of I don't want to get too rigorous with the language, although I am very present to the value in us being very rigorous. I would say that's like close enough for jazz. So that's kind of the track that we're talking about. If we were to get really rigorous, it might be sort of like, um, if what I wanted was more connection, how could I be the clearing for connection as opposed to going and connecting to more people? Okay. Anyhow, now it's time. This is like classic Bruce Buffer. Why am I referencing Bruce Buffer? This is the part where I take a sip of tea and then I'm going to bring Kacey on. So first, let's do it in order. Let's be rigorous. Enjoy our tea rigorously. I enjoyed that tea. Good, did that. Okay, so Kacey, turn your mic on, turn your video on, save everyone from me talking like this. Oh, David wanted to draw. I screwed it up. David, I'm still getting into this. I was meant to give a drum roll. Hello, Kacey. Welcome.
Hey.
How was that for you?
Everybody? Fantastic. It's so funny. As soon as you started doing the like, oh no, it was like all the adrenaline was like, oh, I'm on. Yeah. Sorry. Now I was all nice and chill. Now I got to chill myself back down again.
Chill yourself back down. That's what you got to do. Well,
you've got that excellent MC though.
You've got that sweater working for you too. So I think that goes a long way.
Yeah. I think it was a gift from a friend last week. Thanks, Juliana.
Oh, wow. Last week too. So it's fresh.
So my first day to ever wear it. Yeah. Busting it out just for this.
I realize like that conversation about being a clearing for something is present for me now. I'm like, people don't give me much in the way of clothes. So that's, these are the sort of things, these contexts start to use us. I'm like, oh my God, it's showing up everywhere. Okay, well, you and I, let's see if I can trace our lineage. I think the first time we talked was, how did we connect? Like you got on my list, I think. Is that right?
Well, we're both graduates of accomplishment coaching. So I kind of knew of you being connected through our various ways. I don't remember what it was you posted, but there was something that had me say, I need to connect with him. I need to talk. I need to chat. So yeah, I reached out and you and I had a little coffee chat, a little virtual coffee chat, probably a year ago.
Feels like about that long.
It's been about a year ago. Yeah.
So at that time you were still leading to some extent the coach training that you had then graduated from. And now you're out there in the world leading in everything that you're doing.
Yeah. Cool. I graduated in 2015 and then worked with leadership until December of last year. So yeah, it's been about a year of kind of being out and about as a free agent in the world.
Goes quick, doesn't it?
It does. I can't believe it. Yeah. Until we just reconnected. I was like, oh my gosh, that was a year ago. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Cool. Well, so what are we going to talk about today? And I'm going to take notes. So if you see me looking down, that's what's going on.
Cool. So I think where I want to focus, it was actually my coaching request with my normal coach, my weekly coach this week, but around, and it's so perfect for this, my tendency to kind of say yes, like I'm an unconditional yes to things, to life. I'm like, yes, let's do this. Yes, I can take this on. Yes, I can take that on. Yes, I can work on all 10 of those projects at one time. And it's a gift and it has made life really exciting and fun. And I've done a lot of cool stuff, and it also causes a lot of breakdowns. And I keep getting feedback from people who mean a lot to me in my life that they feel like I'm too busy for them, or, and that's like the best case scenario. Worst case is they feel like they don't matter to me. Or I don't know which one's worse, or they feel like they can't trust me. Like I'm not reliable. I'm not going to be there. And I'll always show up. I may be 10 minutes late, but I'm going to be there.
Right.
So it's like the pros and cons of being willing to dive into something, to say yes to something last minute, or to take on one too many things. And this has been who I am my entire life.
This is like a familiar experience for you.
Absolutely. And it's a tricky request because I feel like it's so easy to look at it as something I need to fix. But I don't want to fix it. I actually really like it. So I'm kind of unwilling to do it any other way. but it's not working.
Great.
So good luck. Have fun with
So,
that.
and you got like something from your coach. Now we're going to get played off of each other. You're like, I didn't like that. I'm going to go over here.
But I know I'm like, I hope she's watching. Lee, I hope you're there. She's going to laugh because we started talking about it. And I immediately was like, oh, I am so defensive. I am so defensive. And everything you're saying is just bouncing right off of this. And being willing to even say that and put it out there instead of just saying, whatever you say. Okay, great. And being really agreeable client about it. I'm like, this is not going to go very far. So we really didn't make much headway. So I feel like we kind of cracked it open a little bit, which makes me feel like bringing it here, we can probably take it a little deeper.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, and I want to preface all of this. I was thinking about this today, how it's almost a little unfair over here for people watching. They're like, oh man, I wish I could do what Adam does or something like that. Like there is a bit of, maybe that's not how it occurs, but I'm present to the fact there's a little bit of a trick in the one-off coaching session because it's fresh. We're not like, we don't have that long-term thing, and the magic in coaching happens in the long term. There's a lot of magic that'll happen, I assert, today and in any conversation, but I want to provide that to everyone, that like, don't be seduced by how easy it looks on the one coaching conversation. And you and I, and you've probably experienced this, we'll see this even when we're training new coaches, everyone's got one good question. We can all ask the one good question, and then we're like, okay, well, I did my work. You sort that out. I'll pass it over to someone else. I'm being generous and magnanimous. So there's that. And having said that, what did you arrive at with your coach so that we're not recreating the wheel?
Yeah. So we looked at how scarcity plays a role in this whole pattern or whole setup. And we talked a little bit about intimacy as well. Like, is this a way that I avoid intimacy? Is it a way I just avoid either disappointing people or being disappointed by them? If I can just kind of keep everything, all the different places at a certain level. Because I did totally out myself that I tend to manage people's expectations by, like, some of my strategies are that I don't ever answer people's texts right away because I don't want them to then assume that I will always do that. So sometimes I'm like, I'm not going to answer you for 3 days just to calibrate what you expect of me from here. So we talked a little bit about that and like my different strategies that sometimes are on purpose and sometimes are just things that I do, habits. But again, didn't really get much past that because as soon as we distinguish it, I'm like, well, yeah, but I'm not willing to shift it. I'm not really willing to do much other than that because I don't know how else to handle all of these things that I really want to be doing.
So it sounds kind of like you're present to the pain of this. Like, you sound pretty clear on what it's costing you, more or less. You're not quite clear on how to address it. And I don't hear like a lot of possibility beyond, not that that's a bad thing. It's just like, it doesn't sound like you're like, oh my God, and this is what could all happen. It's more like, here's how it sucks. I don't want to feel the suck. I'm not super clear on how. Yeah. Deal with it.
Do something with that. Yeah. And we got to the point where I was also in my, defensiveness, like, okay, I kind of feel the pain, but it's mostly like, I'm just finally hearing other people's pain around it. It's not really my pain. So I'm like, where's the line between expecting other people to kind of deal with their stuff around it?
Yeah.
Because I have been told by multiple close friends, like, my relationship with you brings up abandonment stuff for me, or brings up like, just different.
They're saying my
stuff.
relationship with you, Kacey, drives up my abandonment stuff. Got it.
Yeah. Like, you drive up my stuff because I don't know if you're going to be there. And I'm like, well, okay, like, great that I can be this catalyst of awareness and healing in your life in this way. And at what point is it on me to shift my behavior? And at what point is it kind of on the other people to deal with it?
Right.
Which feels really shitty to say.
And I think I notice for me when I'm in that kind of like, is it here for me or is it here for them? That there's a bit of quicksand to that inquiry for me, because then I
Mhm.
can just like, I could get out the list and like, well, is it over here with me or is it over there with them? And it's neither of those. It's almost like that question comes from this context of like, well, what's the thing I'm supposed to do? As opposed to like, what is here for me regardless? Because you're right, like there's always going to be their stuff, especially when someone brings up like abandonment. It's like, whoa, all right, like that's a big
Yeah.
area. Okay, so so what? Like, why is there a reason to sort of bring this forward, or is it currently like, well, here's how I suck and I shouldn't suck, so help me not suck, or at least try your best?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little. There is a little bit of like, I want to be better for the people around me. Help me be a better person.
Uh-huh.
I don't feel like I'm a bad person, but I do feel like it sometimes lands that way. Um, but there's also just noticing where all of my projects are making incremental progress,
Hmm.
and there's that fear. And I know I'm not alone in this. Anybody else who's a multipreneur in any way has that thing of, well, I can't just focus on this one thing and move it forward because the rest of these will kind of die.
Uh-huh.
So feeding all of the things. And so for me, it carries over not only in my human relationships, but it's also my relationships to my projects and the things that I'm up to. And this, of course, is what I work with other people on a ton. So it's, for anybody watching, super vulnerable to be the one who supports people in this and then is like, I too struggle with this issue.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's probably part of the nature of being coached too, is a lot of the way the world's set up to look is like you got to be the expert with it all figured out, and then you bestow your expertise on other people. Whereas coaching is really like we got to be maybe a half step ahead of someone and willing to stumble, and that's where the magic is. Um, okay, let me speak about this more broadly for everyone else that's watching as well, which is to say, like, this is a pretty common, you've probably had this before, Kacey, as I have. Like, it's really common for us to come to a coaching conversation or just life, like, here's some stuff that sucks and I want to be better. So let's fix the suck. And then, of course, we're going to have resistance to that because there is some reason that this is happening. Like, there's some payoff around this. This, I'm sure, as a coach. And trying to fix something merely because it sucks, we're going to be able to get only as far as the pain stops really being an issue. And then we're going to be like, well, fuck it. What's the point of continuing? I don't feel that much pain. There's nothing to pull us once we get out of the sharpness of the pain. And it sounds like lately there's been like some more sharpness of the pain. People have been giving you this feedback. You're like, So, well, I'm curious, Kacey, where do you, like, I want to honor the resistance that you mentioned. So I'm going to give you the reins back. Like, what do you think there is to do with us in terms of the conversation we're in?
Hmm. I think one, there probably are some strategies and some ways that I could manage this a little bit better if
Mm-hmm.
I were to stay inside of it, kind of going the way it's always gone. Um, so that might be one place to look, is how do I actually like create some kind of structure that would help keep it all straight in some way.
Mm-hmm.
That's one
Keep
place to
it
look.
all straight. Help me know what does that mean?
Well, and again, looking at it in both, it's like, so I live in two different cities.
Which two?
I live in Nashville and New York. So I
Okay.
have friend groups in both of those cities. I have people that I love and want to spend time with and be fully connected with in both places. And it gets really hard to stay in touch with what's happening in Nashville when I'm in New York for 2 weeks and vice versa.
Right.
So I've started to like set calendar reminders for myself, like text so-and-so in Nashville today, text so-and-so, like just set something that keeps it all at the forefront at the same time, which feels like madness.
I'm doing the thing and I hate it.
Yeah. But do you guys feel better? Because I really want to make sure you feel okay over there.
Right.
That's kind of where I've been at. So I don't know if it's looking at structure or if it really is shifting the context that would have me. Well, maybe that's it.
Got it. And it sounds like you're doing like the thing you put in place. If we just use that as an example, the calendar text so-and-so or whatever, sounds like that's intended to provide something to them, and you're maybe tolerating it or like empowering it even, but it's not, it's like, I'm doing it. I hope they feel better. But I don't hear much in that for you, aside from like, if my friends feel better, that is better for me on some vague, level. Is that fair?
Yeah. I mean, there is the reward of course, I love connecting with these people. I love it. And I love when we're back and forth. But yeah, every now and then it does feel like, am I doing this out of obligation? It's kind of a should. And if I do it organically, I know there are people who are left feeling like they hear from me every 6 months, or they only hear from me when I'm in this town or whatever.
Right.
And I think that's normal to a certain extent. And I do have a lot of friends who are also all over the place, traveling, working on a lot of things. And for them, it's also fairly normal, and we're all very grateful for each other because, we're like, oh yeah, you're one of my friends that even if I only see you once a year, we're like super close, instantly in relationship. This is not a problem. It's not an issue.
Right.
It's funny, the more I'm verbally processing all this, the more my resistance is kind of like, okay, I do actually want to shift something around this. I do want to slow down a little bit or be able to focus on a number of things that's a realistic focus. But it's like any of us who are trying to change something, it's that fear of, ooh, but what happens if I actually do it? I can see the gift in it, but
what's the gift in it?
I think the gift in it is that some of the things that mean the most, like some of my projects that would mean the most, would actually start to move forward with a little more velocity.
How come?
Well, I would spend actual time on them.
How does it go currently?
Well, my book is an excellent project, and congratulations on your book, by the way.
Thank you.
Super exciting. I've been working on writing this book for what feels like forever. I hired a whole separate book coach to help hold me to it and give me some guidance and some feedback. And we've had to reschedule a number of times because I'm like, honestly, I have not done anything on this. I set this time aside for writing, but I will always say yes to something else that pops up in the moment that seems very important. And it's not that it's not important. It's not that I'm just distracting myself from the big thing, but that is what ends up happening, So if I said no to a few things along the way, I would have spent at least 30 hours on this book in the past, month or whatever.
Oh God. So it sounds like by virtue of this thing, like what we're looking at, there's certain things that you're I'm just trying to adjust my camera here a little bit because I'm hoping that changes the weird color dance that's happening. There's certain things that are like you're reliable for those to happen inside of this, and then there's other things that are reliable not to happen. Mm-hmm. Do I have that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so what are the things that inside of this context, this paradigm, what are the things that, yep, that's going to happen? You already know that'll occur.
I will always answer a call from somebody who says, hey, I need some support. Are you available? Yes. Okay. Yes, I will be available for you. Always available for my partner. If he needs something or wants to go do something, like I'm working on my book, he's like, hey, let's go get dinner. Let's go do something fun. Okay.
He needs me to go out for dinner with him.
He needs this right now. He needs pasta.
He needs me to watch 4 hours of Netflix.
Exactly. Although I will say that actually was a breakthrough for me when it started to happen, because historically I've been a person who always put work first. And so I was not available. So it used to be reliable that I would totally focus on work, and fun would be on Sundays. Sunday is fun day. And that's it. So to take my time to actually like watch TV on a Wednesday night, when we first started to actually empower that, I was like, holy moly, people do this. People in the world sit and watch TV. It's wild.
You used to be very like rigid, sort of like work first. And now you've shifted to some other approach where it's like maybe not work first. And it sounds like in each of these, it's not quite giving you what you want to create.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So what can you distinguish about the stuff that you will always have time for, that you'll allow in, that gets done, versus the stuff that seems to fall off as a result of this?
I think, man, some of it is really the stuff that would have me be seen. Like that's such a like, haha, of course it is. Like it feels kind of obvious to say it out loud, but yeah, the stuff that gets put on the back burner is often what would have me be very, very exposed and very seen. Putting a book out in the world is pretty freaking vulnerable.
Right.
You know, for me, it's like working out, taking care of myself. I have a weight loss project. It's been ongoing for about 8 years. And it's not, you know, it's not a ton, but for me, like there is trauma associated with it. And there's a lot that it brings up. And so the more successful I am with that project, the more vulnerable and unsafe a part of me feels. So I think that's probably what's underneath. And that's probably the thing with relationships too, right? It's like the deeper I get and the more I let these people in and the more they see of me, the more they really, really see me all the time. So there's no more hiding or picking and choosing when it's the right time for somebody to get to know me or something like that.
Interesting. So to people at large, so you just said, Kacey, like the stuff that would have me be seen is the distinguishing thing, which would be like really, there's like a delicious coach bait to that, you know, like, ooh, there's the reason. And I even felt that a little bit in myself, like, oh, there's the reason, we found the reason. And it, as you were saying it, you kind of, I don't know if that was there for you or not, but there was like, oh, it's obvious, but it's the stuff that would have me be seen. And that feels like doesn't feel like we're there yet. And so I want to identify that, because that's the sort of place I often see us, as all of us as coaches, we get caught. It's like, oh yeah, we found the thing. All right, now we do the work. Oh my God, it's about me being seen. Everything will change. It's kind of like the refuge, you know, like, great. What is it that you're not like, what is the next step on your book? Is it like to sit down and write? Is it to like, what is the actual action to take there?
It is. So I'm working on the proposal itself. And a place where I keep getting stuck is, who is it for? Who's the audience? Writing the target market. Who do I really want to connect with? Who is this going to connect with?
Okay. So is anything written yet?
There are 2 options written. I actually have it written as, here's who I want it to connect with. Here's who I think will actually buy this book. And
is any of the book itself written yet?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Got it. Is it all written?
Completely written. It's not all written, but there are pages, there are words.
Okay, great. So this isn't in the way of you actually sitting down and writing some of the book, but there's like something that you're up against. You're like, that keeps getting set aside. You would have put 30 hours into it, but you're not.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. So what else is this making this thing where certain things happen, certain things don't happen? Like what else doesn't happen in your life?
What else doesn't happen? Being on time for things. That's not always reliable to happen. That has gotten significantly better over the last few years, but I noticed I am more reliable to be on time for work-related things than I am personal things. There's like kind of this like, well, no big deal, whatever. But it does leave the people who I'm meeting feeling like, you know, like they don't matter.
How does it leave you feeling?
Angry that they feel that way.
Angry at them?
Yeah.
Okay. When you are late, is that the predominant experience then? Like, fuck, these fuckers are going to be mad at me, idiots, or some flavor of that? Probably nicer words.
Sometimes nicer words, sometimes not. Sometimes, like angry or like, do you guys not understand what all I'm doing right now? Like it's a not being gotten, not being gotten and a not being seen. And there's like like the ugly thing I don't want to say is like there's this sense of not being appreciated.
Mm.
Yeah, this is good. We're getting to the point where I'm like, I have no idea where this is going to go next or what's going to come out from here. So
Yeah, same.
yeah.
What part of the reflection I have is I noticed that right now a lot of this is either for them or about them. So it's either like, oh, I want my friends to have a better experience of me, which, you know, we all kind of want that a little bit, but it's not a very empowered, you know, that's in our language, we call that a little at the effect, right? What you want in your life is at the effect of what your friends want, as opposed to what you're at cause for. Or it's like, how are you left feeling? I'm annoyed at these people for how they feel. I'm annoyed at them for me feeling unappreciated or ungotten or unseen or anything like that.
You know what the biggest thing is coming up for me right now is this sense of being wrong or making myself wrong that I have not felt in quite some time. There's a lot of that under the surface. Like, I think that was probably something that was distinguished a long time ago, and then I piled a bunch of stuff onto it to try to work through it.
Right.
And that is totally a big part of what's under where the book project sits. You know, of course, if I don't put it out there, it never has to suck. And people don't have to appreciate it or not appreciate it because it's all in my head, and I can talk about it in a way that's, you know, I can talk about it in a way where people are like, oh, that sounds amazing. That sounds very impressive. So I get to feel really good about it and feel good about where it's at, but not worry about being wrong about what actually goes down on the paper. I don't know how that translates into like the timeliness and the friend conversation right off the bat, but I noticed that sense of make wrong come up, and I was like, ooh, what is that?
So let's make sure let's like draw our map or just situate ourselves to some extent. We've got kind of like, it sounds like do a lot of stuff. Like that's part of the thing. You're doing twice what a normal human being would do. We'll just pick a number. And then part of the consequence of that is continually late, continually like, we'll call it maybe balls dropping. Even if the ball is like, oh, I'd like to be connected with that one, that thread gets lost. Yeah. From there, there's an experience of the stuff I want to do isn't moving forward and feeling ungotten, unseen, unappreciated. And then this experience of you feeling wrong, so to speak. Okay. Where do you think we should go from there?
Well, we've definitely gotten to the pain of the thing.
Have we?
Well, that pain of not being gotten. Like
that seems kind of comfortable for you, though. It seems like what's familiar for you is to not be gotten and then to be annoyed at people for not getting you. Would that be fair?
Yeah.
Is that like a familiar, perhaps repetitive or ongoing persistent experience where you're like, these fuckers, now this is how it sounds in my head, but like these fuckers don't get me. And if they got me, things would be different, but they don't. Something like that.
It's funny because it's such a, what I will call a vintage Kacey conversation, you know, like it doesn't occur like the current conversation I have in these moments. But I think what we're getting at is that is still running under the surface somewhere. It's still, it's still in there. Let's see, give me a second here. It's so funny because I'm over here still making myself wrong for the fact that it exists. And I just don't think like we're not going to get anywhere other than me talking about what's wrong with it or why it sucks, which is not going to be anything new. So
well, may I put something in the space for you?
Yeah.
So it's really intriguing because it's kind of like you're creating it's like, first of all, it's hard to hit a moving target. And you are a moving target. You're doing twice what a normal human being is. And even in your speaking, there's like a speediness to it. I notice I'm putting extra attention on my own breathing, my own breath, because you feel a little breathless to me. That's not right or wrong. It's just like, oh, I notice that's in the space for me. So moving target, hard to hit. And so part of the consequence of this is you're left feeling ungotten, which I'm guessing has some kind of payoff. But the trouble is that if we're left feeling ungotten, that's uncomfortable to sit with, especially if we're the ones creating it. And if we can make that someone else's fault, or we can make whoever is leaving us feeling ungotten wrong, at least then there's sort of like, well, it's wrong. Like that allows us to sort of push it down and focus on the wronginess of it. So it kind of makes sense to me that you're also creating that for yourself. If not them, well, then I'm wrong for this thing. Does that land before I go further?
Yeah, I mean, as soon as we took a minute, I'm like, oh, I'm doing it in this conversation. You know, I haven't really given us anywhere to dive deep. The minute we start to dive deep, I'm like, oh, but there's something over here too, you know, and it is very impossible. The amount of people who've said, you seem so hard to pin down. Like you just seem hard to like get, and you're hard to hold on to. It's probably also why I didn't have a committed relationship until about 3 years ago.
God bless that person too.
He's a
and
trooper.
you for creating that. Yeah, that's awesome.
But yeah, I am like hard to pin down. It does feel like you said there's a breathlessness, and for me it's always like my brain is moving so fast and is always figuring out this thing and this thing and this thing, but there's no real sense of moving forward in any way. It's just moving around. So I actually don't know what that would be like to consistently move forward or to go deeper. And I did choose perfectly depth as one of my words for this year. It's like, this is part of what I want this year to be about, is to go deeper with people and with projects and with things and with myself and with spirit and all of these different, of course, there were so many different places.
I was just going to say, that's hilarious. Yeah.
So there we go. Perfect illustration of how this works.
I'm going to talk to these other people for just one sec and say, so the beautiful thing here is that whatever ails the person we're in conversation with is going to show up in the conversation with them. So when we've got someone who creates life in a way that's breathless, you could expect them to show up breathlessly. When we have someone who waits until they know the right answer, you're going to be in a conversation with them and go, what do you want? And they won't answer until they know for sure what the right answer is. So nothing wrong about this. This is amazing. It's the beauty of coaching, is that we get to work with how someone's showing up in the moment, because that is also how they're showing up everywhere else. Thanks for modeling that and your grace in being with that, Kacey. I'm present to your grace in this moment. And I notice I wasn't until this moment. How is that something you often get to be present to in yourself?
Not nearly as often as I would like. And as soon as you said it, I got emotional.
Tell me about that.
I have tears in my eyes. My heart is somewhere up in here.
That sounds dangerous.
Yeah. I don't know how long a person can survive with their heart in their throat. I better push it back down and talk about something else. Yeah.
Well, will you slow down and sit with what showed up for you? And like, if you're willing to let me, like, will you take a deep breath and just be with like your grace and what you shared, which is, I don't often get to be present to that part of myself.
Yeah. What my heart and intuition say in this moment is that by running around doing all the things, I get to take care of everybody and make sure everybody's okay and that they're entertained. Oh yeah, we really landed on something here. Taking care of me has always been really hard.
Wow, I really felt that. I'm sorry. I get it. Thanks for carrying that much. that you would, I'm going to language this, may sound a little weird, but like, thanks for creating it really hard to take care of you so that you could be up to the task of taking care of an infinite number of other people. That is an incredibly compassionate, loving thing to do, especially for, I'm going to assert you put that together very young. That's an amazing thing for a child to take. Like, children have this incredible ability to be like, got it, here is my life's mission, and take that on.
It's hard to reconcile because, I grew up with people who loved me very much and made sure I had all of my needs attended to, and took me to every dance class and voice lesson and, after school, whatever. Like, it wasn't like I grew up neglected. But I think whatever unpleasantries there were, like, things were not perfect. And there were things that were in breakdown in my house, to put it nicely. And I think, staying busy to be distracted from what doesn't work is the only way I've ever known how to cope.
So what's the promise of staying busy? Like, if I stay busy, if I do all of this stuff, then?
I don't ever have to look at anything too hard or for too long.
And was there more?
I think there's something around not having to feel it so deeply. I have always been a very, very deeply feeling person, and a very, like, the feelings are very dramatic.
Get that about you.
Yeah. And, on the mental health standpoint, there's a history of bipolar disorder in my family. And there's those little trickle down, and seeing what happens when you delve too deeply into your emotional state or your feelings. It's not a safe space. It's actually dangerous for the people around you. It's dangerous for you and people around you. So I think I've probably coped with the feelings by just staying on the move.
Got it. Well, that makes a lot of sense too, because as we were looking at this, a lot of it is like, again, it's out there. It's about what's out there. So I should fix this because of what's out there, or I feel this way because of what's out there. And rather than what's in here, like, it all goes externally.
Yeah.
What would you have to look at and or feel if, you were to slow down and be with?
I'm even having trouble looking at it now because the story of being selfish is popping up in a big way.
Like in this moment?
Like, how selfish and how self-centered to talk about, like, oh, I might be sad. Maybe I'm sad, or maybe I'm mad, or maybe I want something that I don't, like, I don't know. There's a very old story that comes up where I can practically hear a voice loud and clear. You're so selfish. You're self-absorbed. You're self-centered.
That's relatable to me.
Yeah. In my quest to not be, it makes me land as even more self-centered because it's not available to anybody.
Yeah. Okay, so that's showing up. Like, I asked the question, what might you have to look at? You said, oh, I wouldn't have to feel stuff when I'm going this quick, like a payoff there. And then, and you get a ton done. Like, my sense is you get shit done. You're reliable. So it's not all bad. It's not all sucky. Totally. You're probably very good in roles like project management or stuff where there's many, many balls and you have to, like, sort of half keep all of them in the air. And then I asked, okay, well, what would you have to look at? What would you have to feel? And then oh my God, I'm selfish. That's kind of like pulls you away from looking at or feeling it, right? That's like, don't look at or feel that stuff.
Yeah.
Help other people. Can we not let that stop us?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So We get it. There's going to be a story, a voice from however long ago that's going to be like, this is selfish. This is selfish. We're just going to acknowledge that. Like, okay, great. Thanks for your input. We'll come back to you, maybe. So what would you have to, like, just generally speaking, if you slowed down, if you really had to take a look, if you let go of being so busy that you couldn't, what would be there for you to look at and to feel?
Being normal, life being mundane. There's a lack of excitement or a lack of the constant hit of, I did it. I did this thing. I accomplished this thing. I handled one more thing than you thought I could. Look at me. It's all of a sudden just like, oh, I'm a person. I do things like the laundry and the dishes and, like, I don't know, normal people stuff. So now, like, what's special? I think that's it. It's like, it's a fear. As soon as I start talking about this, the fear that I will discover that I might not matter that much if I'm just a regular old human.
That one felt like there was some emotion with that too. You willing to share more?
Ooh, this is hard.
Yeah, I get it. Thanks for being with me in this. I'm feeling you.
Yeah, this is a really tough one. Like, this is going down deep, but it's that fear of not being important to anyone.
Won't matter.
Yeah, you don't matter. You're leavable. You're dispensable.
For me, it's the version of this story for me is like, I'll be irrelevant.
Yeah.
I'm not magnificent. It's very all or nothing. Like, I'm either the most amazing guy that drums and dances and does all this cool stuff, or I'm just irrelevant.
Yep. Absolutely. Which of course makes it nearly impossible to put a book out in the world if you're afraid to put yourself out there in that way and then be irrelevant after you do the big thing.
Yeah, I would imagine that the only sort of approach open to you is either delay, or like, well, they're kind of the same until you have the book that is guaranteed 100% magnificent.
Yeah. It's definitely a first place or piece of poo kind of world over here.
That's a good, like, distinction for your clients. My clients are either first place or pieces of poo. That is the way they experience life.
That's all you got.
I'm sure a lot of them would see that.
Absolutely.
Okay, got it. So I'm pretty clear, like, just lay some planks. Like, we started, I'm doing all this stuff and like, what for do all this stuff? And the easy place is to fix it for other people, which isn't going to, I wouldn't imagine that would change really any of this. Like, we could fix you, we could have you put stuff in the calendar and call people and feel better, but it's for them. And thus you're still not included in the picture. And I would imagine that might leave you feeling, once again, unimportant, irrelevant, whatever. So there's this thing that if you slow down, if you be with this and allow whatever there is, that you might have to be with that feeling of unimportance, of regularity, of mundanity. What's available, like, what would show up for you in life if those things you never had to manage those? Like, it occurs like there's a lot of managing that in your life. Is that fair?
Which
mundanity,
things?
regularity,
the
like, yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to rein my brain back in because it's already doing the thing it does.
Want me to ask the question again?
Yes, please.
Mine does this too. It's like, this conversation's boring. Let's have a more interesting one. Like,
this
no, Adam,
mundane.
That's a diagnostic for you. Yeah. So I'll lay the planks. So we're looking first, we started in the surface. The foreground is you're super busy, people get annoyed, blah, 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 blah. And where we've gotten to is what is there that this kind of skates on top of is like, wow, if you slowed down, you might have to be with just being another human, being regular, mundane, unimportant, leavable, irrelevant. That was my word.
Mhm.
So, the next step I took was like, it sounds like there's a lot of, even if we just looked at this stuff at the surface, there's a lot of managing these things. I got to do a million things so that I'm not this.
Yeah.
My question is, what would show up in your life? What would be possible or available if you never had to worry about that? If that didn't get in the way, if you could just be exactly as you are, mundane, boring, whatever, and it didn't slow you down, what would become available in life for you?
I imagine it would be that I always laughed and said, I wish I were less smart. Like life would be easier if I could kind of be blissfully ignorant. And when you said that, I tapped into like, oh, I wouldn't overthink things and I would just go about my business, like kind of do my thing, and allow some things to be predictable. And I have definitely made headway on this.
Hold on. So now what your brain is doing is it's gonna qualify this and be like, and I'm not doing that bad of a job. Knock that off.
Okay. Yeah.
So great. I love where you're looking. I would possibly have a lot more ease. I heard, wouldn't have to overthink. Great. What else? Like, tell me about that life where this stuff that is kind of dictating a lot didn't show up, didn't have to be an issue.
It's peace, which is my purpose, according to this work we do. And when I first got that as my purpose, I cried and I was mad. I was mad. Like, there's no way that's my purpose. That's so boring. That is
so regular.
Boring. Ew. Yeah. And intellectually, I fully embrace it. And in the moments where I experience it, it is so amazing. It's so delicious and it makes perfect sense. And I'm like, oh my God, yeah, this is absolutely who I am. You know, like when you said grace, it's one of my essence words. It's absolutely who I am. And it resonates on such a deep and powerful level. But my God, how rarely do I let myself actually be it and sit in it and have it for more than, I think the longest I've ever experienced it is a week. And that's because I was in Costa Rica on a beach leading a retreat. Like that was,
there's the key.
Grace. Like, here we go. Oh my God, I found grace. Yeah. Finding that in the midst of New York City and all of the things. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the first thing I want to reflect to you, Kacey, is you feel very open and soft and gentle and tender in this moment. Thanks for that. It's very beautiful. Like there's a quality to you that is so welcoming and soft and feminine. Not in the gendered sense, but in the energetic sense. Really acknowledge and appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
How would so I just want to spend a little bit of time expanding that out. Like, how would your relationships be different if you had access to ease, peace, and grace? Never mind what you would necessarily be doing, just how would they be different?
They're so easy. And there's just a different sense of acceptance of myself, of the other people, of time.
Tell me how time would be different.
It would, and in the moments where I can like, you know, or where I have tasted this, it's like time is suddenly slower. There's suddenly more space. There's suddenly so much more presence. And I'm in it now. Like I'm experiencing that right now. I'm like, oh, I am fully present. I feel like I'm back in my body completely instead of watching myself having this conversation. And it's just, it's a fully present, fully actually being seen. Now I'm actually letting you be with all of me.
There's a lot to be with too.
It's not boring. No, I'm kidding.
Well, even when it is like, so what I mean when I say there's a lot to be with is like, you have a magnificent presence to you. And grace is a funny thing because grace is, have you seen Lord of the Rings?
Yeah. Bits and
One
pieces.
person that
I'm
hasn't.
not
What's
like
that?
I know I've never seen Game of Thrones either. So
Yeah, yeah. So we'll go out on a limb here. Galadriel is the
I'm with you.
elven princess, and the fellowship goes to wherever it is. Please don't write me, people, and correct me. And Frodo gives her the ring and is like, well, maybe you could take the ring. And then she sort of shows him this vision of herself with the ring and what the impact would that. Do you remember this scene at all?
A little bit.
So that's like Galadriel for me really embodies grace. She's this very beautiful, gentle, like serene creature, but she's also aware of her impact. And we often think like, oh, grace, easy. It's a lot. Like grace casts this magnificence, this aura about it that is a lot to be with. And so it makes sense for you. There's like a lot to let people be with. And even in your mundaneness, at times that's going to drive stuff up for people and for you.
Yeah. That lands in a big way.
Big way.
That that it actually brings a sense. It's kind of like building a bridge of healing to that very young part of me that was too much.
Mm.
You know, too much to be with in a way. So I think there's probably some interesting work to be done around that. Yeah, I'm just going to sit in this space for a minute because it is so nice to just be and not have to get anywhere else and not have to go anywhere. It actually feels really luxurious.
It's a good feel on you.
Yeah. It is hard to notice like how challenging it is to stay with it though. You know, to not make a joke,
shows up? To
not lighten it up, to not to have to make sure you and everybody else is entertained.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a performer. I chose a whole career in performance before I was a coach. So I got to play out my coping mechanisms on stage to much applause. And it's, I'm in an interesting place, and I wonder how this conversation will impact what my performance work looks like. I've been in an interesting place with it for the last couple of years where it doesn't hold the same energy anymore. It doesn't, my desire is not down that path. And
Can I pause you?
Yeah.
So you did this beautiful thing where you were like, I want to just give myself some time to sit in this. And then you started to catch like, oh, it's hard to be in it. And then now we're talking about how it's hard to be in it. So I'm not going to force you into this too much, but like, why don't we just take a few breaths together to like, let ourselves be in the space and honor that.
Yeah.
How was that for you?
It's a pull. There's such a strong pull.
It was 2 breaths more than I was comfortable with. Practice for me too.
Yeah, it's really mind-blowing. I don't, I can't imagine what it's like from the outside, but on the inside, it feels like becoming myself. And it's, on one hand, it's a very subtle shift. And on the other one, it's a different life. It's a different experience, different view, everything's different 2 breaths later.
Uh-huh. What, so conscious to time, I want to start to wind us down. So I'd love for us to create together a diagnostic, like something for you to be checking in with yourself, like, oh, when I notice this, that is a good indicator for me. Maybe some practices. Before we do that, what do you think the breakthrough might be available for you in all of this that we've been talking about? Not that you've created on this conversation. You and I are better, we know more than that, but like, what's the breakthrough available in taking this on?
It's I mean, the breakthrough, to me, undoubtedly the breakthrough is in grace, and it's in and still depth. I'm sticking with depth too, because it's easy to be grace for 2 minutes. You know, it's not easy to actually be fully embodied as who you are all day, every day, or even 90% of the time. As we like to say, we're going to go for. So 90% grace would be a pretty big ass breakthrough.
Nice. Okay, I'm going to write the word grace. I'm going to call you Gracie from now on. That feels cool.
I like it.
Would that be like, if that's what you were holding when this stuff shows up, when people are like, oh, it's hard for me now, like I want to keep calling you Gracie. People are like, Kacey, this happened, or you're late and this, would that give you a different way to experience those moments, to show up in those moments than, I'm feeling forgotten and I'm annoyed at them, whatever?
Totally.
Awesome.
Totally. It's I'm laughing too, because it's this conversation is just such an illustration of how this has been going, where this was going really well July through September, and then it was gone. And at the beginning of this conversation, it's almost like it was never, like I never had access to this thing, you know? But yeah, to consistently be in this place would be such, I mean, I imagine a breath of fresh air for everybody around me too, but it would just be air to me. Like I can actually breathe. I'm actually conscious of breathing for the first time in probably weeks right now.
Nice.
Yeah. And my priorities already feel more clear. You know, what's actually important and what I really want to be working on and where I really want to be taking my voice right now is super clear.
I love that. What, so what is something you could practice in service of never mind what's going to make them feel better. Forget them. Yeah. Purely enlightened self-interest here. What is a practice, something you could take on in service of creating that breakthrough in grace?
Meditation is the first thing that comes up. And I feel like, you know, that's such an obvious thing that we all know we should do. And it's a thing that I like to think that I do, but I really don't. You know, like I meditate once a month. But actually carving out the daily time, the intention has been growing within me, but there's not been that commitment or the presence to why it would actually matter. And that moment, that second time when you had me pause and just breathe for a minute, oh, right, that's why we do that, is to be able to really just bite into that every day, you know? So I think that's a biggie. And
love that practice.
Yeah.
Would it serve you to write these practices you're taking on down?
Yeah.
Cool.
And I'll have a whole Facebook world to remind me of it too. Some
You
serious
said.
Accountability in doing this out in the public eye, you know? Every client of mine who's watching this is going to be like, have you meditated today?
Shut up. That was a performance.
You weren't supposed to actually watch that. Yeah, no, daily meditation. And for me to even say that and then be the person who does that, like be the kind of person who does that, pushes up all the imposter stuff in a really perfect way. So that also makes me extra excited about that, to give me a practice to purposely drive that up and do something about it.
I always love it when people take on meditation. And so I love that because it's sort of like creating an intentional space to practice grace in.
Mhm.
What do you see you could practice when it comes to like that would tie this breakthrough you're up to creating back to where we started, which was kind of like taking on a ton of things and people giving you feedback and sort of all of that? Like, what would be a practice that would somehow tie into that?
Yeah. Well, I think a pause before yes or no
Mm,
is going to be essential. I
okay.
think maybe there's like a 2-breath practice, like you said, it's like 2 breaths more that I'm comfortable with.
Mm,
So taking a 2-breath practice to actually check in and let my heart and my grace answer before my brain does about anything, about dinner, about schedules, about trips, about whatever it is.
I have a
And I
hunch.
will, yeah.
My hunch is your brain will answer before your heart and your grace will. And so it's fine either way. But if that's the case, take 2 more breaths than you want so that your heart and your grace have an opportunity to answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think being willing to go back in and say, my brain answered faster than is actually authentic for me. So I'm going to take that back.
Nice.
Takesy, practicing some intentional takesy backsies might be a thing.
Love it.
And I think, it's funny because on the surface that has it feel, ooh, but what if that's unreliable? But I think it actually will make me much more reliable because I'll
Well,
give myself permission to take things off my plate if I need to.
totally. Yeah. The other the other place I would invite you to practice, and you get to check for yourself to see if this is going to empower you, but is in those situations where you've been unreliable, where
Mhm.
someone's provided you feedback like, hey, this is leaving me feeling blah. You might take a look there. So rather than like, by grace, all of this stuff will be resolved, it's more like all of this stuff's going to happen and continue to happen. Who do I be as grace, in service of grace, in the face of it happening? So when you get that feedback, when you're in those moments, take a look. That might be a great place. Like, oh, grace. What is there from grace in this moment? Would that give you another place to practice?
I'm taking my breaths first.
Well, don't do that now.
Don't practice it here. Yeah, absolutely. Getting into the embodiment of it. And I actually notice it's also a visceral sensation for me. I can feel everything aligning when I ask grace for the response. It's suddenly all the energy is flowing and it's not all over the place. So
Nice.
yeah. So there's a mental and an ontological and a physical check-in associated with it.
Would that be a good diagnostic for you to notice where, like, is your energy this way, or is it sort of like your spine, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even have to think about that. That one's, yeah, super clear, and I
Nice.
do a lot of chakra work, and it's part of what my book is based on, actually, is tying in leadership practices to these 7 points.
Nice.
So it's legitimately just practicing what I preach,
Always, right?
actually doing the check-in instead of just doing it because I'm reliable to do it before like a big event, before I give a presentation, or before I walk into whatever, like when it's obvious. But when it's meeting a friend for a cup of coffee, not
Mm,
reliable to do my 7-point check-in. So I think actually practicing that consistently, like doing my work even when I don't think I need to be doing my work, if that
nice.
makes sense.
Love that. I have one. Let me pause. Do you want to write any of that? I'll let you write any of that down if you'd like.
I'm right. I mean, I can write and talk and think all at the same time based on this conversation. I can take notes and
Totally.
post
Like,
them
hey,
and
maybe
tap
there's an
dance for you.
opportunity here.
Yeah. No, what else do you see?
the last diagnostic that may support you is anytime you're looking over there. Might be an opportunity to practice grace, whatever that looks like, right? That we don't know. Because if you already know, that's probably not going to be in the realm of the breakthrough. So anytime you notice, I want to stop doing this because they're getting annoyed. Oh, hang on, let's take a look on this side and just see what's available. What might there be from grace? How might I be creating that breakthrough? That might be a really great diagnostic.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll let you write that. I'm going to speak to them, and then I'm going to finish by acknowledging you. Actually, I'm going to acknowledge you when you're done, and then we'll talk. We'll debrief.
Perfect.
Cool. Well, Kacey, this was so cool to get to see this side of you. That's so neat that part of who you are is grace, and it just showed up in that moment. That was really profound, and I so get it. And I love it makes a lot of sense to me that you would create yourself as a bit of a moving target, a bit of a blur, because there's a lot to be with. Like, even that you can wear that sweater and make it look so great, and that it matches with your glasses and all of that stuff is like, just speaks to the radiance and the impact that you are innately. So first of all, the funniest thing is, like, you're the last person in the world that needs to worry about being mundane and boring. And I so get it. I really understand, but I want you to know, like, you're just the last person in the world that could ever be mundane and boring. And I honor you for being willing to practice that, like to practice letting yourself be with that, because what it does is it creates a clearing for other people's greatness to show up as well. And we all get to slow down and be with ourselves. And that's a magnificent thing. That really is. It takes a great deal of leadership to be willing to be seen exactly as we are, rather than as we aspire to be. And every time we're willing to practice that, edgy as it is, it gives so much permission into the world. And I honor you for being a coach up to that, up to being seen in this conversation. Thanks for stepping into it in like the 11th hour too. I'm not sure if you knew this is where we were going to go. Certainly not where I knew we were going to go. And thanks for just being absolute grace throughout all of it.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thanks for the partnership in it.
Yeah, it was fun, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to say a few things. I want to hear if there's anything that's there for you. And then we'll speak to some of the comments that are there. This is the part where we read the cool stuff that people are saying about you. That's always nice. So the big theme I was present to in this conversation was, Kacey, you bringing like a thing that was clearly showing up in your life, like a recurring, like, it's not working. And it sort of like, I want to fix this, but I also don't want to, because why bother? Which is so common. That's where so many of us approach our weight from. Almost always, like, I want to lose weight because then I won't suck, but then I don't get to eat Oreos, and I love Oreos, and and then we just stay in that cycle, making ourselves wrong for it, but at the same time not doing anything about it. And so this was a neat conversation where we got to fully empower the resistance that Kacey generously, and her coach, like, I want to acknowledge both you and your coach for getting clear on that part, because that allowed what was next. And part of what was there for us is to get clear, like, what's available on the other side of all this. And we want to do that gently. We didn't want to kick down the doors and say, this is your problem, you're not clear on this thing, but to really get clear, like, what is the breakthrough? I vaguely knew that. I did not really know how we were going to get there. And there were plenty of times throughout this call where I was like, are we in trouble? I don't really know. I'm going to turn these lights on now. There we go. So that was the big thing I was present to throughout this conversation. Anything you want to share, Kacey, that you were present to, that showed up for you, et cetera, et cetera?
The willingness to allow the resistance versus, like you said, kicking the door down. There was actually a lot of grace in how you were with it. I noticed, there was such a pull for me to try to manage it for us and like make it easier. I'm like, just give him something. Just give him something. Just pick one, So yeah, but that shows up with clients all the time. Our clients don't know how don't always know how to coach themselves into a request,
Yes.
And that can be challenging when somebody shows up and they're like, just fix this problem. But being able to see, what's actually under that. What is it really about that you don't think it's about, that you would never imagine it's about? And the willingness to be in the confusion and the deer in the headlights, not having any idea what the next place to look might be, is amazing. And it was helpful in the moments where you kind of lobbed it back at me for a minute, like, where do you want to go? Gosh, shit, I don't know. Where do you think I should go? Those are priceless moments in these conversations.
There's two times when I know definitely to do that. The first time is when I have no idea where to go. And the second time is when I have an absolute idea of where to go. Those are the two instances where I'm like, got to put this back over there. And then the rest is like the dance. But anytime I'm on those two poles, back to you.
Well, and it's so amazing, for you to do that in a setting like this on a Facebook Live where everybody's watching, to put down the performance and the pull to like show us how brilliant you are and how smart you are and how you absolutely know where I could go, but it's going to look magical and amazing. Like, that's a big deal to be willing to put that down and be like, I don't know.
That's our practice, isn't it? To slowly practice that in more and more spaces, to be willing to not have the answer. From there, everything can grow. Yeah.
Well, and to be willing to let your client be mad at you when you don't give them the answer, or when you don't have the answer, for them to be like, well, what am I paying you for? If you're just going to ask me where I should go, what the hell are we doing? What are we doing here? So that was something that really stood out to me about the conversation.
Nice. Let's look at, thanks for sharing all that. Let's look at what people have to say. First of all, amazing drumming. Oh, you're so good at drumming, Adam. You're the coolest drummer. Just tons. No one said that. Yes, Maria, thank you for your questions. Maria mentions like a moving target is easier not to cope with what is going on in the inside. I think both you and I have that. Like I could see that over there, because I think in my first year as coach, I wrote a post called choosing everything is choosing nothing. And the reason was because that's what I was trying to do in my life. I was trying to be the best squash player. I was trying to be a champion level fighting street fighter video game player. I was writing blog posts of strategy about both of them. I was trying to dance. I was trying to become a lawyer, like just all of this stuff. And it was like are you familiar with the concept of hedging a bet? It's like I was hedging everything in my life, which is like if you go to the roulette table and you put a single chip on every single space on the table, it's like, well, okay, but that's not going to change. You're not going to move forward from that place. And that for me was big realization. And then of course there's like living into that realization afterwards, like, oh, wow, insight. And then I'll wait another 2 years before I do anything about that insight. I'm just going to call it a breakthrough for a while before I do anything about it. Maria left us totally in suspense by saying, oh my God, that was an aha moment on this side based on something you said, I think. And then she ghosted us ever since then. So she's probably sitting on the floor like, oh my God, we'll trust that. Maria asked, so I know you're a coach now, Kacey, but what was your profession before that? You said you were a performer?
I was a performer. I moved to New York 10 years ago to be an opera singer. And I did that, and I still do that. I'm in a show on Tuesday.
Amazing.
Yeah. I performed, and like many of us do as performers in New York, I also worked about 6 part-time jobs at the same time for several years. Done a lot of really weird things in this city.
That's especially funny now in light of this conversation too.
Right?
Yeah.
And it got me through though.
Yep, totally.
Yeah.
Very cool. Heather says, love that Kacey's choosing to sit in her grace and really feel it. Katie said, thank you. Thank you just for who you've been, how you've been showing up. Heather shared, thank you. So blessed to have spent this time with us. Thank you, Heather. And Maria, really, thank you, Maria, for coming back and sharing that with us. Said just you mentioning basically first place or poo. When you mentioned the book, either do it exceptionally or put it off. Like, that's so great. That's such a relatable place for us to get stuck. And I'm excited. What is the title of the book? Tell us about it.
The title is a work in progress, but
that's a good title. I like that.
Of course, I have like 7 titles, you know.
Put them all on there.
It should. That would be authentic. Right now it's 7 Wheels of Leadership. And it really is a look at the 7 major chakras. It's a look at leadership through that lens. And so how really to be impactful, we need to be accessing, you know, we have to have a solid foundation. We need to enjoy and celebrate the work we do, take action, be connected, be authentically expressed, trust our intuition, and be connected to a higher mission or vision or to a higher power.
I love that.
And it's meant to be a take on chakra theory in a way that's accessible, like universally accessible, regardless of your spiritual beliefs or lack thereof, and applicable in a corporate setting just as much as it is in a yoga studio.
I love that. As I do more yoga, I'm just present to, well, it's this way for everything. Like I was taking improv classes, probably trying to be the best at that too. And I was like, oh my God, this is applicable everywhere. And then I take yoga and I'm like, oh my God, everything's a yoga. And oh my God, it's all the saunas. And so, yeah, I love that. That sounds really cool. And it's mostly like, how far along is it?
Like 15,000 words right now.
And how many are you going for?
I don't really know yet.
I never know either.
You know, it doesn't feel like first place yet. So I don't know. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of talks on it this year. So I've given a lot of presentations. So I tend to come home, take whatever I just said, plop it back down in the book. And so there's also a lot of editing that needs to be done. And as you might imagine, getting stuck on like reinventing the wheel, no pun intended, like, how do I make this the most unique take on this topic that anybody's ever seen? So,
yes.
But, yeah.
Amazing. Kacey, so you're a coach and an opera singer and 6 other things.
Yeah.
How can people find more about you if they wish to?
KaceyCardinCoaching.com. Come visit my website or check me out. There's also a coaching page on Facebook. Yeah, I think those are the best ways. Instagram. I'm on the gram.
You're on Insta?
I'm on Twitter, but I've only tweeted like 2 times in my entire life. So that's not.
But you know that those are first place tweets.
They are. Oh yeah, I don't post them unless they're first place, guys. Yeah, but Instagram, website, Facebook.
Awesome.
Yeah, and feel free to reach out. Open to questions.
Cool. Kacey, thank you so much. Super treat. Thank you everyone for coming and joining us. A special thank you to David, Trevor, shout outs, Heather, of course. Heather, you should have a top fan badge at this time. I don't know how Chrissy's hanging on to that and you're not getting that little diamond, but you deserve one. Maria, thank you for your comments, your questions. Super appreciate that. And thanks for listening through what I would call like on the court in your own life. Thanks for listening and getting something for yourself. That is amazing. Let me check. Let me see if I can push this pen through my forehead and if that will help me remember what I'm trying to remember. It did. The doors are open for the intensive. So if you or someone you know is thirsty for these kind of conversations, be it as a coach, as a leader, or really get that leaders coach and coaches lead, you should talk to us about the intensive. It's an amazing event. It's here in beautiful Victoria, British Columbia, and it's from May 14th to May 17th. So you've got 6 weeks or 6 months, 6 months of time to sort out all the details. But reach out if that's something you'd like. Some of the people, I know Heather's been there before, and it's an amazing time. We're super stoked about it. That's all for this week. Thanks, everyone. See you later. And then now they watch while I do